Hi everyone, welcome to In My Twenties Podcast with me, your host, Bookie Smart Slyman. I'm very excited for this podcast. It's going to basically be a continuation or extension of my newsletter, which I started a year ago. There's nearly 500 of you now, and I know a lot of you have been asking for a podcast. So very excited to be producing this for you guys and giving more context into some of the things that I've written, why I write. So I hope you enjoy it. Share it with a friend. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, all the good stuff. Put your comments in the chat. And yeah, let's get into it. So today's episode is going to be about winning season and trusting the timing of your life. So this is one of the earlier newsletters I had written in April last year, so about a year ago. And I'm going to read a bit and then I'll explain a little bit more. So it says, contrary to what it might seem like on social media, every season is not winning or harvest season. There would often be a planting, a pruning, growing season before that. A lot of the deep work and sowing was done before the fruits actually start showing. So today's podcast is especially for the person who is in the planting, pruning, or growing season where you're sowing a lot and you're not seeing anything. I want to talk about the work and the importance of actually just trust in the timing of your life, because sometimes it seems like there are only two seasons in life. You're either winning or you might call it failing. You might call it, learning some lessons. But of course, we know that this is far from the truth, because with most things, there's very many nuances in life. Life is never quite black and white. We're all dancing in the gray. Things happen, good or bad. Some things are good as well as bad happen at the same time. And so many of these things coexist together. When you start to grow up and begin to set yourself some goals, the feeling often goes, you're excited, then you're nervous, then you're confused, then you're overwhelmed. And then often one of two things will follow. You either give up those goals because they're too big and you think there's no way you're going to do that, or you actually forge ahead with full speed and your mindset is, if I perish, I perish. So you might look at that and be immediately convinced that the second approach is better. Who doesn't want to set goals and achieve them, or at least attempt them? Well, many people actually. You might not know this or have experienced it, but a lot of people who actually experience success, especially at a large scale or in their 20s, they often sort of crash shortly after that. They have an existential crisis. They start to question themselves. What am I doing it for? They go through what some people might call middle or quarter life crisis, because it's like you've been pursuing all these big goals. You wanted to buy a house. You wanted to get married. You wanted to start a business. You wanted to have your business hit 6 figures, 7 figures. And you get to these life milestones and then you're kind of wondering, okay, now what? Like, what is the next thing? Right. So I actually read an article that said Olympic gold winners tend to emotionally crash equally, if not more than those who win. Michael Phelps, who is a swimmer, actually said he experienced the darkest times of his life after winning 8 gold medals. Isn't that fascinating? So what I've been noticing a lot lately, especially with younger adults, people in their 20s, I'm over the hump now of half of my 20s, and I've been seeing this more and more, is because of social media, because of the unrestricted access that we have or we get from social media, which gives us access to people's lives, it kind of creates this illusion that the closer you are to them, the more your lives can almost match theirs, or you can kind of morph into theirs. Because you follow celebrities that are your age or a little bit older, things they do on a daily basis, start to become more accessible. You think they've done it, so I can too. You see someone who similarly, got overnight success at 29, and you're thinking, if they've done it, I can do it too. But actually, I tweeted this, which kind of summarizes my point. It says, a lot of us in our 20s are competing with people who are 5, 10 plus years ahead of us. But because we have access to their lives on social media, it gives the illusion that if they do X and Y, and you copy the same formula, then you get the same results. And that's not true. So that's the newsletter, mostly. But what I do want to talk about is trusting the timing of your life, because I'm speaking to a lot of young girls who are 18, 19, 20, 21, and they come to me and they're in this season of their lives where they're transitioning from either going into uni or coming out of uni and trying to figure things out. And a lot of them are starting new projects, new businesses, and wondering why things aren't clicking, why they're not achieving success in the way they think. And my advice to them, as it is to everyone listening really, is to trust the timing of your life. I know that it's not always easy. Life is never quite like linear or plain sailing. But I think that you do need to believe that things eventually do fall into place. My story of how I kind of got to where I am is I went to uni in Reading, so the University of Reading. I finished that, graduated. I was confused as heck about what I was going to do next. I had studied accounting and finance, but I didn't know if I was going to be an accountant or wanted to be an accountant, but my parents wanted me to study accounting and be an accountant. So I went to work for a firm called BDO in auditing. So I was an auditor for about 3 years. Loved the firm, loved the people, hated the job, hated the role. It wasn't for me. And I struggled at that point in those 3 years in trying to figure out, like, is this going to set up the rest of my life? Or is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? What is life going to look like? If I don't like this role, would I like the next one? What if I don't like the next one? How am I going to get out of here? All of these questions were happening, right? But again, I deeply believe in trusting the timing of your life. I knew that at some point I will leave. So it was about what are the actions I need to take to kind of make sure that I get to the next point, wherever that may be. And the next point for me after that was financial advisory. So I left BDO, I went to EY. I did financial advisory for about 2 years. Again, great firm, great people, hated the job. It was just not for me. So I studied accounting for 3 years. I've done auditing for another 3 years. I had done financial advisory for 2 years, and I was panicking. I was panicking because I was like, I feel like I should be getting a hang of life. You know, I'm mid-20s now, or early to mid-20s. And the things I thought were clicking or were supposed to click are not quite clicking. So what is going on? In between all of this, I was, of course, like trying to start my podcast and my other business, Save, Spend, Invest. That was kind of my outlet, my creative outlet. I started a second company, which was a fashion company as well, to try and just put meaning into my life, because I think all of us are deeply searching for meaning. And then after EY, I just decided, you know what, I think I need to get out of the financial advisory space, financial services, all things to do with accounting and finance. And I became unemployed. Quit my job. I had no plan in sight, not one. I was getting married in like 6 months from then, but I knew that something had to change. And me staying at my comfortable job and having all these existential crises, but not really knowing what to do, I was like, okay, I have to take the plunge. And so I quit. And when I quit was actually when I started this newsletter, trying to put my words into meaning and trying to see how the ship was going to be steered and in what direction. I prayed a lot. I had all this free time. And so I started getting clarity and direction of what I might want to go into. And what that was a complete pivot into tech. And then I got into Amazon. And Amazon was not on my list of dream companies. It wasn't a company that I had aspired to want to work at. When I started looking for new jobs, I had no idea what I was going to go into. Because of my writing skills, I thought I might actually want to be a journalist. So I did. I worked for the BBC on a one-off project, and they thought I was great. They were like, you're definitely made for radio. You can write your show, produce your show with some other producers. And I thought, okay, this might be it. But then once I thought about how I wanted to show up in life, the kind of work I wanted to do, I figured, okay, maybe not the BBC. I did some writing gigs here and there for some companies, and I was just trying to do everything that I could to gain clarity. But again, trust the timing of your life. So 3 months into employment, I'm interviewing with Amazon. I don't really think it's going to go anywhere. And then I get a job offer at the end of it. And I was not expecting it at all, even though I was obviously going through the whole interview process. But I think I was very skeptical. It almost seemed too good to be true. So I got into Amazon, and then I got married probably like the week after I joined the company. And it was crazy. The transitional period from moving out of accounting, moving into tech, moving into a new role that I had never done before, or done before in the capacity that I was now doing it in, whilst having, I still had Save, Spend, Invest. I had the fashion business, which was closing down. I was getting married. I was moving homes. Like, so many things are going on at the same time. And it was really, really, really hard. But again, I knew that things will kind of click and things will fall into place. And they did, so I did get the job. I did get married. One business closed down. One is still thriving. I started this newsletter. It's still going on. I now have a podcast. And that has only happened because I deeply believe in trusting the timing of your life and just putting one foot in front of the other and understanding that life is ever really black and white. And of course, along the way, there will be times you doubt yourself. There'll be times you want to give up. There'll be times you are not sure if things are going to work out. But I think that you need to believe more in yourself. You need to believe more in the vision of your life. If you're a person of faith, you need to believe in the vision that God has given you concerning your life. And hard as it might be sometimes to actually think of what the next year or 2 years or 5 years will look like down the road, I think that we just need to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process. And I always say this phrase these days, success is in your daily life. It's not just when you get to the end of an achievement or a goal that you're like, okay, this was successful. Like, I think that so far in my 20s, if you look purely at my achievements, then you will think that I've been very successful. Only I know the struggle that I have gone through, right, in getting those job interviews and putting myself in, starting things, finishing things, because a lot of us have dreams, we have ideas, but can you actually see it through? So all in all, I want to say to anyone who is in their 20s, who's struggling with, like, you're doing a lot, but you might not be seeing things immediately. When I started at the very first job I had in accounting and in auditing, I did not know that I was going to end up in tech and end up working for Amazon. And if I had overthought that process, I may not have actually gotten to where I am now. So I think that it's important that you figure out what it is that you are actually enjoying doing, what you want to do more of. What are the things that actually make you happy, give you joy? What do your friends think that you're great at, right? All of these things contribute to where you will eventually get to. What do your parents think? I was asking my dad the other day if he was surprised that I kind of pivoted from accounting, because my family comes from very deep financial services background. So my dad works in insurance, my mom worked in insurance and she moved to pension consulting. My brother works for a bank. My other brother works as an accountant as well. So we're a lot of people in finance. And then I decided to move into like product and marketing and tech, which is just like a 180, if not 360. But you know what? He said to me, I don't think that, it's very surprising that you did move here. Not because you were not passionate about accounting, which I really wasn't. Or not because I wasn't very good at accounting, but because he thought of my personality. He thought of the fact that I like to try new things, even if it's not going to work out. He thought of the fact that I've always been that kid who was very curious about the next thing and the next thing. And even though now I'm slowing down and trying to actually enjoy where I'm at without overly thinking of my next step, I know that I have that innate desire to still just look for new things and branch out and try things. And if they work, they work. And if they don't, they become part of the journey. So I think that it will really surprise a lot of us if we truly sat down and thought about where we want to be and where we could be, if we put our mind to things, starting businesses or projects or podcasts or whatever thing that you want to start, writing a new book, starting a YouTube channel. These things are really scary and they're really hard, and life is really hard, and you will go through so many transitions to get to where you are, because this podcast was fueled by, of course, the newsletter was the backdrop for it, but I had not one, not two, not three, but 4 people actually tell me to start a podcast, and I didn't know why. It makes sense because I have had a podcast and I enjoy talking and being in front of the camera, but it was difficult navigating if I should do that. Like, I love writing. Writing is my comfort zone. I can write in my house. I can write anywhere and you guys can read it, but actually putting myself out there can be tough and can be scary. I'm now opening myself to criticism and, a new world of YouTube, but also experienced something that was really traumatic. I lost my mom over Christmas, and that was the biggest thing that happened to me so far as like change. And I could have gone one or two ways with that transition, right? I could have gone in what is the whole point of life? I don't want to do this anymore. I am, all of the things that I was working hard for, all of the achievements was to make her proud, make my parents proud, and all of these things. And I could have just ended it there. I'd had a good run, had a fair few successes in life. And I felt like if I had decided that I don't want to do any of it anymore because this really traumatic thing had happened to me, then that would have been valid, right? Or I could deal with grief and still be the person that I know my mom wants me to be, which is exactly who I am now and who is doing this podcast. And it's not easy, right? Grief is an everyday journey, as you guys know or might know. But I think that pushing through, trusting the timing of things. I don't know why I'm doing this podcast right now, but I trust that this is probably a vision that was waiting to happen that I may not even realize right now. And in future, it might probably make sense. And I'm like, that's why this podcast had to happen. But I think at the end of the day, you put one foot in front of the other and you try and do the best that you can. And it's not always going to be easy, but I think that it would always be worth it. The other thing I want to say is that, and Malik always says this, life is time, right? Life is time, which means it's not just the stuff that you have, the friends that you keep, the achievements that you strive towards. It's not in how you live, where you live, the car you drive, how many times a year you travel, the clothes you wear, all of those things. But life really is time. And it's like, what are you doing with your time? And I used to be the person who was always chasing the next thing because I hated accounting and then I hated financial advisory. And it was only until I got to where I am now that I'm now at 26 really trying to appreciate the journey and really think about my life in time and how am I spending my time. And even though life will always have its tragedies and beautiful moments, what matters most is how I'm thinking about that time and how I'm spending it, how I'm making the most of it. And that includes rest, that includes being productive, starting new things, spending time with my friends, my family, doing things for me that I really enjoy, going after every project, every passion that I have, and just seeing it through. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what's really going to count. When I look at the life of my mom, who was truly larger than life, to be honest, it's no wonder that, so many people have had so many things to say about her because she really, really understood the phrase that life is time. And she invested her time in so many things. She was philanthropic. She loved giving back to society and charity. She started so many businesses. She was creative. She followed her passion, her dreams. She was there for her kids, her husband. She made sure that we never lacked. She was present in everything. And she truly gave her time to life, and that's something that I think that we should all do. And yeah, as I wrap up, I just want to encourage everyone, to really think about how you're spending your time, how you're spending your life, and trust and believe that everything will fall into place. So I hope that this has been useful. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. Make sure you come back next week for another. Make sure you share this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know where you're at as well. As always, I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next episode. Okay.